Hello and welcome to another edition of Bombers Blitz on the College Football Mafia Network. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. And with me is somebody who's become a close friend, somebody that I really respect his opinions and the way that college sports works to have people come in from all walks of life, all different avenues. Certainly, this guy qualifies for that regard. That'd be Dylan at Four Horsemen Pod is with me tonight.
Thanks for having me, Nate. This is becoming a bit of a holiday tradition, you and I getting together over the holidays to do a show. So
We
thank you for
did the
having me
same
on.
thing. That's right. We did do this last year, didn't we? I appreciate it. I think it's obviously BYU and Notre Dame come at college sports from a very similar background. Obviously, Notre Dame's reach is quite a bit bigger, but it has been an interesting last couple of years being a Fighting Irish fan. You guys qualified for the playoff last year. This year, you just missed out. BYU and Notre Dame were left on the outside. So I think people are going to want to be able to ask you questions and really understand where a Notre Dame fan is. Because I know we talked before, and independence has such a lure, and it looks very positive, but there's some difficulties that come with it too, right?
Oh, there's most certainly those. Independence is not an easy walk of life like many people seem to think.
Yeah.
You have a lot of things to balance, including, where your sports teams play, how you make revenue to stay competitive in this financial gap that we're seeing emerge in college football, getting teams on your schedule, looking out for yourself. So it's a very tough business that does mean a lot to Notre Dame, and I'm happy to answer the questions the best of my ability. Although obviously, without going, should go without saying, I don't represent the University of Notre Dame. This is just my informed opinions and takes on it. But I'm happy to sort of expose a wider audience to Notre Dame fans because I feel like we don't get to interact very much in this space with conference realignment. Obviously, you have
Yeah.
a very strong Big 12 presence, and I feel like our fandoms have never really crossed paths. So hopefully, this can be enlightening and informative for all parties and all listeners.
Yeah, I hope this I'm taking away from this, and I want to encourage everybody to just sit back and just listen to full answers, understand kind of where everybody's coming from on some of this reporting that's come out recently, certainly about Notre Dame, but also about the college football playoff, who qualifies, who doesn't. We're going to talk a little bit about the G6 qualification, what that needs to look like moving forward, and we'll just try to cover as much of those topics as possible. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight on a Tuesday as we get ready for Christmas. Thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight. Really quick, before I do shout outs or anything, Dylan, do you want to quickly tell everybody about your channel and what you guys are doing over there?
Absolutely. You can find us on Twitter at Horseman Pod. We're the Four Horsemen podcast, named after, of course, the legendary Four Horsemen at Notre Dame. We
Yep.
are very open about being biased. We're made by the fans for the fans. We defend the fan base's interests. We do a little bit of propaganda here and there, but it's authentic. We're diehard fans like a lot of you are. Tonight, I'm going to be professional, treat this like a job, and try to be as minimally biased as I can. Of course, I am biased. I am a Notre Dame fan. But if you like some good Homer content as well, we cover college football at large. We always have a welcome community. Lots of great fan bases have made their way into our Twitter sphere, and we love engaging with everybody. So just because you're not a Notre Dame fan doesn't mean you don't have a home at the Four Horsemen.
I can attest to that. They are one of the most welcoming out there. As far as Notre Dame fandom, you'll get the diehards that don't want to talk anything Notre Dame. You'll talk about people that are more cosmopolitan, want to talk about all of college football, and you have somewhere in the middle. I kind of think that's where you guys sit, Dylan, is you're in the informed consent area. You do try to stay up on not only news attaining or affecting Notre Dame, but also all of college football. And so I want to encourage everybody to look up the Four Horsemen Pod. It's at Four Horsemen Pod on Twitter, and yeah, give them a follow, and then tune into their shows. How often are you guys doing shows now?
We typically do weekly, although our season has abruptly come to an end before we
Yeah.
anticipated it. So, our group's a little bit banged up. We got one of our hosts is sick, so we're gonna do a few more episodes here, I think, to wrap up the season, and then we tend to be a little more sporadic in the off season.
Okay.
But our Twitter page is quite active, and who knows, maybe we'll have a lot more to talk about this offseason. I have a sense that this might be a crazy offseason for everybody,
Yeah.
which seems to be the norm in college football these days. So, yeah, let's let's see how that goes. But we tend to be active on social media at least.
Well, I appreciate you spending some time here with us, and I just want to let everybody know what it doesn't matter what you're a fan of. If you like college football, this is the place to be. So let me do a couple quick shout outs. First, there's LC versus the Earth. I finally got that right. Moen has schooled me on that. LC versus the Earth, a newer member of the College Football Mafia family, and we appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you so much for becoming a recurring member. We do encourage everybody to become recurring members like LC versus the Earth. We do all kinds of member content. It's been actually, Moen's been doing a member show once a week, which has been a lot. I don't know if he's going to keep that going in the off season, but certainly we give benefits to those people that become subscribers. So we want to encourage you guys, if you're thinking about subscribing to a YouTube page, think about us. We do a lot of hard work, as Dylan said. We do put in the time, and we do try to do the fluff work so that you can go someplace and be the smartest guy in the room if you've listened to us. I appreciate LC versus the Earth becoming a recurring member of the College Football Mafia family. And then also, out of nowhere, Ryan Thomas, 887, a $2 super chat. Thank you, Ryan. Ryan knows how these things go. Dylan is the man. So there you go. Yeah, I don't know if you recognize Ryan, but he's a fan of yours.
Oh yes, me and Ryan are pretty close. Really great guy, a fellow BYU Cougar. So I'm starting to get really close with your fandom there between you guys and a few else on Twitter. I've really come to like BYU, even though we've had some disagreements about playoff rankings in the past. It's all in
Right.
fun and game.
I was going to say that, and that's not Notre Dame's fault, right? The disagreements between the schools have that. Is the epitome, right? It's at the very top of all of college football, and it's because it's a tradition that was winning championships 100 years ago, and you don't get rid of that legacy anytime soon. BYU has always aspired to be similar, and if not in reach, certainly in respect to reaching up and trying to do better as a program. And I think Notre Dame set a great example, and we're just trying to duplicate some of the hard work you guys have put in. I know we've spoken about this a few times, but and I'll get to the news report in just a second, but BYU and Notre Dame have a lot of similarities, don't they?
Yes, they do. I mean, they're both private religious schools that have faced, various attitudes towards them based on that alone in their history. They both have played each other, I think, about 10 times in our history. We kind of, I mean, you were independent for the longest time as well, so you understand those
Right.
challenges. And I just think there's a bit of camaraderie between the two schools, which is why I'm glad we did this home and home coming up here because I've got
Right.
never any complaints about playing BYU. I think it's a great program. Obviously, great fans as well. And I'm contrary to some narratives out there, I'm looking forward to going to see Notre Dame go to Provo, and that's obviously a very beautiful spot, and playing a really great college football game there. So, yeah, a lot in common, and I think that makes us natural allies.
I was gonna, and I think I said this on Twitter when we spoke a couple days ago, but or maybe it was just yesterday. If you are able to make the trip down here, I guarantee you, people will make your life be like heaven. They in the stadium and in Provo in general, visiting fans, and we have people in the chat that can attest to this themselves. It really is a trip of a lifetime setting. And you'll never be treated better as a visiting fan than you will at BYU. And I hope Notre Dame fans take advantage of that. I know they will. You guys travel. BYU travels well as well, but Notre Dame has that legacy in there that normally you have about 3,000 fans in the stands for somebody, especially if they're east of the Mississippi. I have a pretty good idea that you guys are going to be buying as many of those tickets as possible.
I think so. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement for this game, and what perfect timing For
Right.
just what are the odds that many teams have a 2026 opening, never mind a playoff caliber team? So to me, it
Exactly.
was a very shrewd move by Pete Bavacqua, the athletic director at Notre Dame, to immediately replace USC with a team who's, by any metric better right now. So the strength of schedule is improved by doing this. That doesn't mean I want to see that game go away by any means, but very good, very fortunate timing, and I think we kind of owe you guys one for the Pop Tarts Bowl.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, I was looking forward to playing you guys this weekend, and it was just too bad it couldn't work out. But no harm, no foul. It doesn't matter. But fans like to tease each other, but certainly, I think everybody's just looking forward to not only those two games, 26 and 27, but maybe in the future we could do more. Who knows where you guys are able to continue to nail down good opponents, but BYU will make room for Notre Dame anytime. I know that.
I would love to
So
hear it. And I think this 2 year stint could maybe see something develop out of that with the way college football's going. So I know we appreciate being able to play there and for you guys to come to Notre Dame. That's going to be a great
again,
experience for you folks as well. I know you've been there. I think 2012 was the last time we had a home game at Notre Dame, or
that sounds right.
2013. Yeah,
Yeah.
those around that time. So, many fans haven't had that experience, and it's a great experience as somebody who's a little biased, but it's a very gorgeous campus. A lot of history there, and I know Notre Dame fans are very welcoming of all opponents, unless they're maybe from Ann Arbor, but that's a separate story.
That it's been a bucket list item. If BYU continues to succeed at a high level, we know Notre Dame will. I'm going to try to make that 27 game. I've got it on my dream vision board, so we'll have to see if I can work it out. My wife will give me the money, but it should be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the two games regardless. Another super chat night, as everybody knows around here, or if you've watched any other YouTube channels, super chats. Normally, the creators will read them immediately. So I appreciate anybody who's given us a super chat tonight. I will probably be taking general comments out of the comment section, but if I read yours, it'll be a crapshoot unless it's a super chat. Just letting everybody know. I do defer to member comments as well. But we only have so much time for these shows. We're already almost 15 minutes in. I can't believe it. So if you really want your comment to be read, you want it to be addressed specifically for Dylan, don't hesitate to make it a super chat. To do that, hit the little dollar bill next to the comment box, and it'll walk you through it. Okay, another couple super chats it looks like we have here. Marcus Williams, another valuable, longstanding member of the College Football Mafia family. So is Ryan, by the way. I forgot to call that out. OG members around here. We appreciate him. Dylan, is Notre Dame feeling the squeeze to join a conference? That's jumping ahead in my storyline, but why don't you answer that question? A lot of people have been asking.
Yeah, I think it's hard to really say for sure what's going on behind closed doors at Notre Dame. I don't think it's as much of a squeeze than it's always been, right? We've been facing this pressure for a while. Like the walls are coming in to an extent and have been
Right.
for a little bit. Has that expedited it? I don't know. I think a lot of people thought the missed playoff selection was a telltale sign that it's time to join a conference. Notre Dame does not view it that way. We missed the playoff because of a head-to-head loss to Miami,
That's right.
and because of a little bit of committee wackiness in their selection. I mean, we could walk through that whole sham of a process to sort of keep Alabama in there. But the point is, it wasn't just conference affiliation that kept us out. And look, we were in the national championship 12 months ago.
Right.
So I don't think that decision has pushed us into a conference more. USC, losing that series, that could be more of a telltale sign moving forward to see if maybe that were to continue. I think the biggest hurdle is going to be in 2030, which I know there's some comments about that. I think that might be the next real big test for Notre Dame's independence. It's also a bit of how much does Notre Dame want to put up with it,
Yeah.
and it seems at the moment they're happy to. You take the good with the bad. We call it the independence tax. We understand, we take less money than we could if we were in the Big Ten or the
Mm-hmm.
SEC. That's something
Yeah.
we're willing to. We leave money on the table, believe it or not, contrary to what people think about Notre Dame, by staying independent. So I think there's just a general squeeze going on. I don't know if right now it's walls are really closing in all of a sudden. I think things have kind of stayed the same a bit. We'll see about scheduling, but you got to think as well, folks. Clemson and Notre Dame just struck a 12, 15-year series, which
They
was done
did.
last year in anticipation of USC doing this. Because make no mistake about it, USC has been publicly trying to pull out of this rivalry for about a year now. So we've seen this coming. We made moves to prepare for that. So the strength of schedule component of that has been mitigated by Clemson, and the network concerns of having a big brand has been mitigated by Clemson. So they are taking proactive measures. There'll still be more they'll need to take. But right now, I don't think there's an immediate squeeze to get in. Long answer short.
I love that long answer short. I agree with you. If everybody could do independence, they would do it, people. It's way harder than anybody can imagine.
100%.
BYU had to invest over $100 million in an entire communications infrastructure, not just a building, but people, resource staff. And that took them 12, 13 years to really get to a point where they started feeling up on playing. Notre Dame's been doing it obviously for 100 plus years. But if you're just X number school, you want to drop into independence, it's not as easy as it sounds. So we just need to keep that in the back of our mind. I think people would like to see a little more organization around how Notre Dame does their scheduling, and maybe there's some guardrails you can put on that from the CFP perspective, like minimum requirements or whatever. But at the end of the day, if BYU could be as successful at independence as Notre Dame is, I'd be saying, why join a conference at all?
100%. And I think every program, if they were being honest with themselves, if they could do what Notre Dame does at the level that Notre Dame does, where you get
Yeah,
CFP access, where you get the money to make it work, they would. There's no choice. Like, look at the Big Ten right now. They're having an eternal disagreement, let's say, over this private equity deal.
yep,
When you're at a conference, you run that risk of decisions being made for you that you don't agree with, or people lagging on decisions that you want to see done. When you have that autonomy and that decision making that Notre Dame has over themselves, that has its own benefit to it. And Notre Dame is a very particular school. They're one of the few that still believe in the student athlete, and they're lobbying Congress to get an exemption on um, certain statuses for these student athletes to make sure that they're compensated, but they're not total employees, and that there is a student relationship. That's a value, that's a principle the university has, and I'm not saying the Big Ten doesn't have that by any means. I'm just saying when you put yourself in a position where decisions are made collectively, you might not like some of those decisions. So yes, we are very protective of our independence for a whole lot of reasons, and that's just one of them.
If you like I'm saying, if any school could do it, they would be doing it, and they're not. So it just gives you a good indication of how difficult it can be. Um, let's see, another super chat here from Daniel Gygax in the house. Good to have you here, Daniel. Daniel's a member and contributor, and I really appreciate all the hard work he does for us around here. Dylan, your take on the Freeman to NFL? I believe the New York Giants rumors.
Well, as a Dallas Cowboy fan, I hate the specific nature of that rumor. Uh,
That's good. That's good.
and I'm only a Cowboys fan because my old man is one, so don't hold that against me, folks. Um, I'll tell you what, obviously I'm very scared because Marcus Freeman, I think what the playoff run last year showed everybody is the culture that he's built, the man that he is, and the type of program runner that he is, and it's something everybody wants. When Penn State fired Franklin, he was rumored as if he would ever leave Notre Dame for Penn State. That's a whole separate side joke, but that was that's who they speculated. When LSU fired Brian Kelly, that's who they speculated. Florida had speculated it. Every opening right now, they're interested in Marcus Freeman, and that's very flattering because he is amazing. And the thought of losing him is terrifying because he's been able to recruit at a level we've never seen at Notre Dame, at least since Lou Holtz, which is before the recruiting era of websites and rankings. And he's done such a great job culture-wise. It's a shame they're not playing in this playoff because on selection day they were fourth best odds to win the national championship. Like, this team is close; they're knocking on the door, and to lose him would be very scary. So I'm terrified of that by default. Um, However, seems to be an optimism at Notre Dame. It seems like there was probably a contract extension in the works. And from what I've seen from Giants reporters as well, it seems like the biggest question is not can Marcus Freeman get the job? It's does Marcus Freeman want to leave Notre Dame? So there's
Yeah.
kind of a bit of they don't think there's a bit of skepticism in New York that he will want to leave Notre Dame. And look, the NFL is the NFL, but I'm a romantic. I think college football's better. I think all the blue bloods is a better job than the NFL, and that might be romantic college football bias, but I wouldn't see that as an improvement. And also, the job security in NFL is nothing like he would have at Notre Dame.
Yes. Yeah.
Winning a championship at a place that hasn't won one since 1988 would mean so much for his legacy.
Yep.
And I just think he's meant to be a college coach. The way he handles and develops young men, teaches them principles, does things right. There's things like that just he would almost be wasted in the professional game. And the Giants, let's be honest, they haven't been a great franchise for a hot minute. And
Yeah, I like that. Exactly.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the right situation to find yourself in if you're Marcus Freeman. So I'm leaning he's going to stay at Notre Dame. But yeah, to answer your question, I am still terrified of it because the thought of losing him would be detrimental to the program.
Very, very good. So that's all the super chats, everybody. We have so much we're going to cover tonight. Shout outs, I'm going to sort of sublimate them and we're going to just get right to content. So anybody who's left comments, normally I say hi to everybody, but let's jump into these stories. We have these guests for such a short amount of time. If we decide the show goes a little bit later, I can always rewind it and tell everybody thanks for being here. So I'm just going to tell you all blank. Thank you for being here tonight. For Dylan, we just want to thank you for spending some time with us. And make sure you subscribe, follow us on Twitter, and then consider becoming members of our respective communities. So I was knowing I was going to have Notre Dame on. Originally, the show, when I told Moen I wanted to do a show Tuesday, I said, let's do it on the G6 inclusion, right? Because there's been all this discussion since the weekend games that G6 shouldn't even get one team in every year. And what are the limitations on them getting access? That's originally where I was going to go, but I'm actually going to work back to that because I want to work through some of this Notre Dame stuff. And I'm going to go through some articles and quotes, Dylan, and then we'll discuss it. Is that cool?
Sounds great with me.
All right, let's do this. So first, I need to pick the right. Yeah, let's go with this one right here. Okay, so this first one, and if I don't pick the one that was your favorite article in this discussion, don't worry about it. I'll get to everybody's point of view. I'm going to start with this one. This Ryan Cartjay, and I'm not sure how you say his last name. Carte, maybe? Let me get the link. So we always give credit to creators for the work that they put in. That's on Twitter. Recommend you looking it up. But this is the summary of kind of, if we're going to talk how things went down yesterday, there was an announcement that the USC Notre Dame continuing contract, just they haven't been able to close the loop on it. People weren't sure what the reason was. There's been all kinds of questions out there. But this is where I'm going to pick up the story, and we're going to work backwards so that everybody can kind of see how this went in normal time. So this first one is from Ryan, and he says, USC and Notre Dame were close to announcing a continuation of their rivalry earlier this season. USC was ready to compromise and play a 26 game in November, but then USC learned of Notre Dame's agreement with the CFP to have a guaranteed spot in the top 12. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. And let me get to what that agreement actually says. So I don't know if Dylan, you even caught this at the time either. You guys know how passionate I am about this NCAA governance and how college football is run and how the CFP negotiations. I've been pretty hard on people over the years about how difficult it's been to chase these stories down and to understand all the moving pieces. Well, let's just read word for word what the memorandum of understanding, which was announced after Notre Dame was left out. Pete Bavacqua famously stands up. I don't know if he regrets it now, but stood up and said, this won't happen to us next year if we're in the top 12. And I looked around and I looked side to side watching on my bed, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I had no idea what Pete Bavacqua was talking about. So then I dove onto Twitter and like trying to find the information out. And all I could see was his quote repeated over and over and over again. That went for almost 4 days that we hadn't seen anything on it. Here's the actual verbiage. And then, Dylan, this is where you and I can chat a little bit. This is in the last CFP negotiations as they were talking about getting rid of the requirement for the first four entrants into the CFP would be the highest rated four conference champions would get the buys 1 through 4. And then after that, everybody else would qualify into the tournament. Number 5, then normally people would look at Notre Dame, saying pretty much every year, if Notre Dame goes out and at least wins 10, if not 11 games, they're looking at maybe having access to that 5th seed. That was 2024. 2025 comes around, they're negotiating, trying to figure out, do we add more games? What do we do to the format? And they changed everything. And this is one of the changes they made, and that was you don't have to be a conference champion to get into one of those top 4 spots. The only ones that get buys are the top 4, and to qualify, you're no longer having to be a conference champion, which meant Notre Dame could have been the 2 seed or the 3 seed. That changed everything in that negotiation. And I don't know what the horse trading was going on in there, but I want to read this word for word from the actual report that came out after that negotiation was done and signed. This past spring, CFP leaders, the 10 conference commissioners, and Notre Dame's athletic director reevaluated the format when they agreed on a new 6-year extension that begins in 2026, so next year. They didn't settle on a format. We want to go to 16, even 24 teams. They haven't settled on the format yet, but they did settle on a few things. First one being the 5 highest ranked champions get an automatic berth. They're not saying where they're berthed, but they're going to all qualify. So that would still give you the top 5. This year, that ended up being the AAC champion Tulane, got into that 5th spot. Number 2, the field to be 12 or 14 teams in size. If it grows more than 12 or 15 or 12 to 14, this rider disappears. And if we go to 16 or more, this no longer applies. So this addendum only has to do with 12 to 14 teams, which is why I think they're going to keep they're going to do everything I can to keep it at 14. But we'll see. Notre Dame to receive an at-large bid if it is ranked inside the top 12 or 14, depending on the field size. And why does that verbiage matter? Because this year they were ranked 11th, but they were left out. Why were they left out? Because they had to take the next 2 conference champions because the ACC did not qualify. So it completely blew the metrics off of all this stuff. BYU still would have been screwed, and I'm not going to get into that tonight. You guys know how I feel about that anyway. But this definitely was something that hit Notre Dame, and it's ironic that if it had said they were needed to be in the top 11, Notre Dame would have been in. But it wasn't. It was 12, and so now this was news to at least me and my team. I didn't know anybody that had been reported this all last year. Hadn't seen anything about it. This is the first time it came up. And I admit it must have been something I missed. There must have been some report that was put out. And there's been people saying it was me that said it, it was me that said it, whoever. Bottom line is everybody agreed to it. So it's even if it's not reported correctly, everybody, it still was agreed to by the 10 conference commissioners plus Notre Dame. So these idiots running these conferences, for them to be complaining about it now is complete hogwash. They agreed to it. If this is gonna hold, they need to be held to their own account. Can't blame anybody else. You can't blame a reporter here. You can't blame. This is on the conference commissioners, or in some cases, conferences represented down to schools. So first question, this is where I want to start, Dylan, is were you aware of this clause before it was brought up by Pete?
Yes, but not to the extent that it would apply to the top 12. So there was a report that we picked up on. I feel like it was in the spring. It could have been last year, but when these negotiations were going on, it was really looking like they were moving to 14 teams, and that
Right.
there would be automatic qualifiers more for the conferences.
Okay.
Now, as people may or may not know, as you could tell from that quote, the committee in the future of the sport is made up by 10 conference commissioners and Notre Dame. The concession that was made for more automatic qualifiers or for whatever format was to give Notre Dame a protection should they be ranked inside the top 14 of an expanded playoff. I did
Okay.
not know that applied to 12. That was news to me. What's important, however, is that it was not news to USC or any other conference commissioner because this was agreed to.
Yeah.
Um, all 10 conference commissioners signed off on this, plus Notre Dame's athletic director, and they all briefed their schools. And we can maybe get to another report later
Yep.
that
I've got it
confirms that.
here. Yep.
And this was known. So the USC's entire position here that this revelation somehow blew up negotiations where they had to demand a week 0 game, which, from what I understand, you can't play week 0 unless you're Hawaii or you're overseas, which
That's why
means USC.
Netflix was looking to pick up a game that was overseas. Yeah.
Right. So that means
Yeah.
USC's new position, which was clearly a bad faith offer, is now our only thing we'll do is week 0 in another country on Netflix.
Right.
Folks, you can't blame Notre Dame for not wanting to do that when this rivalry has been played on meaningful days of the year for 100 years. USC, it was in their own report that USC was concerned about a game being played at a time where a loss will affect how the committee views them. That is, again, beyond cowardly in my opinion, and I'm the Notre Dame fans coming out a little bit, but they knew this. So like I don't buy this at all that this somehow blew up the whole negotiation. USC was aware that we had this protection. I understand fan bases and individual schools might not like it, but this is the result of a bargained agreement between the 10 conference commissioners and Notre Dame. Everybody knows about it. To act like it's such an offense to college football now is very disingenuous. And it's very frustrating as a Notre Dame fan because who gets all the hate for this? We do, despite everybody else agreeing to it. So, that's where I stand on it.
I look when it first came out, and you probably didn't catch it, but the minute Pete Bavacqua said that about the 12 and 14 qualifier for Notre Dame, I was on Twitter saying, "What the hell is he talking about?" Right? I asked around trying to figure out what are the details on this thing, and then I had to do a mea culpa and say, if this was out in the popular culture and I missed it, that's on me. I take responsibility for that. But I'm a YouTuber sitting in a suburban house in Pleasant Grove, Utah. I'm not the conferences, or for more important, the schools, the athletic directors and presidents who had to vet and agree to this deal for Notre Dame. They're the ones who agreed to it. They're the ones who finally have to be held to account. And I just think it's stupid that it's like a red herring to me. People are saying, well, blame the reporters. You don't blame reporters, blame yourself, blame your own lawyers. That's the thing that stands out to me.
100%. And look, it's not for the YouTubers and the fans out there to know this. If you don't know it, that's fine. Like, we only came about it in a certain context at a certain time
That's
because
right.
it directly affected us.
That's
A lot
right.
of people in the Notre Dame community didn't even know about this. But when you're a president, an administrator, a coach, this was already known regardless of how popular the reporters had spread it. Like, this is out there. Don't come crying wolf now and somehow acting like Notre Dame is cheating the system that everybody had agreed to. But like I give fans a pass on that because they didn't know that. But when it comes to administrators, that's where I start to get a little angry.
I think it's reasonable because this is one of those occasions where Notre Dame's on an island, and it's the smallest of islands in college sports. And we'll talk about specifically college football. They are in a league of their own, and that's not to say that they shouldn't be held to a high account, but they shouldn't be held to a higher account than the conferences should be, let alone the schools. It might be one thing that the schools would screw it up, right? I mean, according to this report, BYU had some amount of oversight on this, and I didn't see anybody standing up on tables here in Provo, screaming from the rooftops that this is something that they were being forced into doing to support Notre Dame. I kind of feel like this sort of slipped through is what this looks like to me. This whole report
Yep.
seems like people didn't do the due diligence.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I think that's a perfectly good take to have, that it caught a lot of people off guard. But yeah, let's move on to this one, actually. This is my
Yeah,
favorite one, Nate.
this is your favorite. So all I'm going to do is read this, and then when I'm done reading, you just jump in, okay? Give me
Okay.
1 second. I need to copy the link because we give those creators. So in this case, it's Nicole Arbach. I just posted the link to this article and several subtweets from Nicole Arbach. So I'm going to read these, and I'm going to give Dylan a few minutes to address it. So um, there's all this noise, and Dylan's already mentioned it, that USC is now blaming the MOU for the reason they didn't want to sign a longer term agreement with Notre Dame. One of many. There were a few others. Let me quickly run through this, and then we'll talk about it some more. A person with direct knowledge of the communications between the Big Ten Conference office and schools confirmed that all 18 schools, that includes USC, received the full language of the CFP MOU, that's what we just talked about, which was unanimously supported by all current and incoming members in March 2024. So this was a year and a half ago. USC source disputes this. USC cites new information about the MOU in the past few weeks, and I would just say the last 10 days. And CFP's selection process overall as key reasons it didn't want to play Notre Dame late in the season. And why is that? Let me interject right there and ask a question to the world. We're gonna talk about it in a second. But the reason that's important is because it became very evident by the end of the year. If you're gonna lose in September. Don't lose in late October, November, or those. Everybody has a short-term memory. They don't remember losses in September. They do remember them in October and November. So that's why the timing makes a difference for that USC's talking about here. Let's see here. The MOU language as it relates to Notre Dame has not changed since it was communicated to Big Ten schools last year. And we'll just leave it with that. So yeah, go wherever you want to with that, Dylan.
Oh boy. Let me just start about explaining to people from at least how I perceived these events to transpire. Like I'll talk you through the timeline of this whole debacle. So this starts about a year ago or so on Colin Cowherd's show. Uh, for some reason, that guy still talks college football when he hates everything about it. But he did a whole piece on, it doesn't make sense for USC to keep playing Notre Dame going forward. That was his bit. And if you remember, this is around the time where like Lincoln Riley tried to cancel the LSU game for USC. That became public. He's also been accused of perhaps running from the SEC. Like it's very in his nature to maybe try to get out of certain difficult games. And sure enough, not long after, Lincoln Riley talks about the rivalry, does a little bit of lip service of, it's an important game to the fans, history, blah, blah, blah. But, it's got to make sense for us going forward as it relates to the college football playoff. So this was a year ago. This has been out there for a while, that they were specifically concerned that the difficulty of playing a Big Ten schedule and Notre Dame would make it hard for them to make the playoff, which is ironic because they haven't even come close to making the playoff in the 11 years of its existence. But that was a big deal for them. And of course, the college football world mocked them for that. It was cowardly. It's like, what are you afraid of competition? If you're a playoff team, you should be able to beat Notre Dame. You should be able to get through a Big Ten schedule if you're a playoff team. And, the time that elapsed between kind of that and, let's say, the Notre Dame USC game this year, you heard different things come out of USC about why they were reevaluating the game. But it became very public that they were. And some of them featured, well, we're concerned about travel, like as if somehow playing Northwestern in October and Notre Dame in September versus Notre Dame in October and Northwestern in September makes a difference to them. They're going to the Midwest either way. So those
Yeah.
didn't really make sense. Then there was, well, the Big Ten doesn't like to have their conference games outside of September, but the Big Ten wasn't going to prohibit this deal from getting done at the normal time that we play each other. So a lot of excuses were being made. And then Pete Bavacqua goes on Dan Patrick, and he's asked about this. This is the Notre Dame game with USC this year in October. They talk about it. They kind of say they're confident an extension is going to get done, which turns out to be the case. So if you read that article that the USC side has posted, that Notre
Yes.
Dame and USC apparently in November, okay, so we're now basically a year's gone by. They've been publicly undermining the rivalry, publicly negotiating, questioning about it, different excuses for why. Now it seems like we have a 2-year extension. And I had heard this from USC people as well that are in the know. So I very much believe that was the case. 2026 in LA in November, as usually played, and 2027 at Notre Dame earlier in the season, presumably October, where it was typically played. That was the extension. We had an agreement to play at that time, according to their own sources. However, they say this MOU that's come out in the last week or so, that has basically blown up the deal because USC feels disadvantaged that Notre Dame has this protection and they didn't, in the event that they had weirdly played each other and there was a head-to-head, but Notre Dame had this provision. They think that weakens their position. But this is, pardon my language, bullshit, because they've known, as Nicole here has confirmed with multiple sources, the Big Ten and their schools, and every school, knows about this MOU. They knew the language of Notre Dame's protection as it relates to the college football playoff. So to now pretend like you didn't know that, and that's now the reason to change the negotiations, is garbage. It is an excuse for a school that has been publicly trying to get out of this rivalry for a while. And what they ended up doing is they made, apparently, a last-ditch offer to play in week 0, God knows where, um, as this is the only option now, as if they didn't know the MOU existed 10 days ago. So all of this to me is in bad faith. There was no actual compromise in that position at all. It's like saying take this date or nothing. And you got to remember, this rivalry, national championships used to be played on this game. It's been a while, but this game always had high stakes. And to try to move this, by their own words, was to play it where the CFP wouldn't negatively affect by losing. So earlier in the season, as you mentioned, Nate, they want it to be early so the loss doesn't affect it. Well, that takes away the stakes from the game. Does that not take away from what the rivalry is? You're playing it with the assumption that, well, if I lose, it doesn't matter. That's not how the games work, and that's certainly not how the best rivalries work. And whether the fans listening at home agree or disagree, Notre Dame's position on this rivalry is that it is the best in the sport. You wouldn't move the Iron Bowl to week 0. You wouldn't move Michigan, Ohio State to week 0. And it doesn't matter that they're in the same conferences. The principle of this rivalry, for what it means to the sport and what it means to the respective programs, you hold that. You cherish it. You play it when it should be played. And for this negotiation to be blown up last minute on something they already knew, to come back with a bad faith offer of playing it earlier in the season, I have no problems with Notre Dame not agreeing with that at all. Sure, Notre Dame said no to it, but when you look at the context of this whole thing, this is on USC. They've been publicly trying to get out of it for a while, and now they got what they wanted. So, nothing's going to change, I think, this relationship until Jen Cohen at USC is gone. And one of the concerning things here, Nate, and be my final point on it, USC leaked this to the media that because of the MOU, they didn't want to play Notre Dame. I can't understand for the life of me what benefit that would serve other than to encourage other programs who are apparently mad about this MOU to box out Notre Dame, to freeze Notre Dame. This is a rallying call to do that. And what kind of partner, your brother institutions, Notre Dame, USC, rivals, but long cherished, valued relationship there. Why would you do that to a partner? So I think this is going to strain that relationship, and I would not expect the series to come back until Jen Cohen is gone. I'm not saying that with information from Notre Dame. That's just my take of it. Is this seems very sleazy. It seems like either mass incompetence or more likely lying, and I just don't like the way the direction USC has gone because Pete Carroll would beat the crap out of Notre Dame, and we never thought to end the series. People who are in that program, alums of that program, they understand this, and you're seeing a lot of USC people speak out about this. Keyshawn Johnson did a great video on it where he attacked USC, his own school, for what they've done. So I know everybody wants to hate Notre Dame right now. I get it. We give a lot of reasons for people to hate us. This one isn't on us. This one's a shame on USC, and it's heartbreaking because I love this rivalry, and it's sad to see it go.
Jose, a valuable member of the College Football Mafia family, and I owe him one of my flags, and I haven't gotten in the mail. Jose, I have no excuses except for it's been busy this last week and a half. It's just been a busy life. So as soon as I can, I will get that in the mail to you, brother. I haven't forgotten it. I still got it in my car. I just haven't been to the post office. How do you address this where he's saying and you can even see it right here in Nicole Arbach's report. It says March 2024. Is that a typo? Because I thought they redid the contract in spring of 2025.
Yeah, I thought so too. I'm not sure if that's a typo. I've not followed it as closely. I just knew of it.
Okay,
At
yeah,
least
you
with this.
know about as much as I do. I've only gone off of the third party reporting I've got as well. I
I
guess what
I
I'll do
remember
is go ahead.
I was just going to say, I remember when it came out, it was a big relief for Notre Dame because we were concerned if there was going to be a whole bunch of automatic qualifiers that would force us into a conference. So
Right.
when that came out, that was pretty big, and I imagine uh, I don't I don't think that protection would be going anywhere unless everybody revolted against it. But again, those conferences agreed to it, so I'm not sure what it is going forward, but that seems to be the current situation.
Jose, if you can find a different source, not Nicole, somebody else that it can confirm whether it's the 2024 or 2025 date. I think this is a typo, but I'm not in her head, so I'm not exactly sure where the source material comes from that. But I think the 12-14 team exception for Notre Dame was introduced this spring, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong on that. So if it's 2024, his point is this MOU is now defunct because it's no longer 24, it's 25. I would think Pete Bavacqua is a pretty smart guy. He's not going to stand up there and make this declaration, piss the entire world off if he didn't have the details straight. So I got to believe that applies to 2025 and 2026. Could be wrong, but that's where I would guess. So Jose, if you get that link, put it in the comments and I'll try to grab it and we can certainly talk about it. Not afraid of talking about it more. Let me ask you that question. Um, where are you with the way that college football? This has been this is something I've always said, and I know we talked about this before. The reason everybody bags on Notre Dame is because they're all jealous. If your school, I don't care who you are, even Ohio State, if your school could get away with what Notre Dame's getting away with and didn't have to worry about the hassles of a conference, it didn't have that legacy sitting in the back of their head. I think Alabama, I think Georgia, I think Ohio State, Michigan, Texas could go independent tomorrow if they wanted to. Everybody's going to schedule those games. If we throw that out and just continue to look at Notre Dame by itself, if the whole world now is finally seeing Notre Dame for what they are, and that is they've had the benefit of a conference, but they're an individual school. They have the same voting control as conferences with 17, 18 teams in them. If this is finally the straw that breaks the Notre Dame needs to be in a conference by, let's say, 2030 date, I kind of feel like Notre Dame people are at the point where, like, okay, fine, if that's what we have to do, that's what we'll do. It's not what we want, but we understand the world has moved on. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you're going to have to remove playoff access to us or just
Yeah, I
access
agree
to
with
all
that. It
good
would only
teams.
be playoff access. Yep, I agree.
Yeah,
Yep.
like unless we can't play a schedule that's even remotely competitive, then I don't think that's going to happen. And also, you got to think too, the only thing worse than Notre Dame being independent is Notre Dame being in a conference that isn't yours.
Yeah, well, that's true too. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah,
like
that's good.
it's not in the SEC's interest to demand Notre Dame stop getting special treatment. In fact, it's in the SEC's interest to keep Notre Dame where it's at with whatever special privileges it has. And I think you can see that evidence being borne out in the scheduling between Notre Dame and USC. Notre Dame in the last few years has added for future schedules Texas, Alabama, Florida, and Auburn. We just finished a home and home with Texas A&M, and we're in the middle of a home and home with Arkansas. So we're working with the SEC. The SEC has always been not a detriment to Notre Dame's independence. Let's say you've never seen them complain as a conference. In fact,
No.
when Notre Dame got left out of the playoff, I mean, let's be honest here. A big part of that was the SEC's influence on ESPN about having their conference champion losers stay in it. Every other conference champion loser, including BYU, got knocked down in the polls, but not Alabama. Our athletic director clearly is smart enough to know that, but he didn't say anything about it. And that says a lot to me that Notre Dame and the SEC are kind of working partners to some extent. So I don't think you'll ever get conferences all agreeing to box Notre Dame out to that extent. I think it might
Right.
just become a reality with the scheduling, and we'll see what happens to the ACC. So that's another big hurdle is is the ACC still around, and to what extent is Notre Dame getting quality schedules? Because we're been pretty disappointed with what we've been given so far in the relationship. There's a whole other side story we can go on about Notre Dame and ACC relationship being strained recently.
That's
But
my next question. Yeah, I'll get to
okay,
that in a
let's get into
second.
it.
Yeah, we'll definitely address that. I want to bring up the thing you just cued the memory in my brain about the SEC and Notre Dame working together right after the crap hit the fan when Notre Dame was left off and Notre Dame homers were up in arms, really upset. They were kind of led to the water, but the trough was empty for the CFP rankings and how we got there, and all of that was so screwed up. It should have never been there in the first place. But it came out that the only person that Pete Pavak would talk to after rumors that the ACC and Notre Dame they were on the skids, was he'd only talked to Greg Sankey. So Notre Dame, when everybody was bitching and mowing, and Pete Pavak said, the only person I've been in contact with is Greg Sankey. So everybody needs to know that Notre Dame's not dumb. If they start to see that the ACC is going to fall apart and they'd like to keep their independence, don't be shocked if they do something with the SEC to keep their independence. Not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying it could happen. And if there's anybody that's an opportunist, it's Greg Sankey. Just keep that in your back of your head. When you hear Pete Bavacqua, Notre Dame, SEC, Greg Sankey, just know they're talking on many, many levels. Okay, let's quickly talk into what you just brought up. Now we have the ACC Notre Dame relationship, and it turns out that finally, and I've been predicting this since I got into social media, that eventually the ACC thing was going to come back and hurt Notre Dame. The scheduling was going to fall off, and this year was that year. They just didn't have enough of the top end schools, and there weren't enough top end schools in the ACC to really lean into for a schedule. I think it's finally those chickens have come home to roost with Notre Dame and ACC's relationship. Are you guys starting to look? Maybe you'd look for an out on that. How are you looking at that part of it?
Well, maybe. This is the head scratcher I have. I think Pete Pavak was done a good job so far as the athletic director. I don't know what the purpose of this was yet. Some people have assumed. So let me just kind of remind the audience of what happened. Notre Dame wasn't upset that the ACC lobbied for Miami. Notre Dame was upset specifically with the ACC's social media campaign that targeted Notre Dame as a resume comparison. So it was always Miami versus Notre Dame and not Miami versus Alabama or BYU or
Right.
Vanderbilt, whoever it would be. And for a while, it was just Notre Dame. They had said something, and then the ACC started to kind of broaden who they were attacking. But, like, look, we're not in the ACC. I don't need you to lobby for us, but I don't think it's much to say don't actively try to take us out of the playoff, right? They ran the Miami Notre Dame game on the ACC network for 24 straight hours, which is kind of funny. I laugh as I say it, but, that would upset Notre Dame. Now, the way Notre Dame reacted to it makes me think there was maybe more of a political play there than just we're upset that you acted that way. A
Yeah.
lot of people, I think, assumed, and maybe it's right to your question, that Notre Dame might be looking at another deal elsewhere. I've been a pretty big proponent of the ACC deal from both perspectives. I think Notre Dame brings a lot to the ACC, including the value for the ACC network, which gives nice payouts. But also, the ACC provides Notre Dame a lot as well. And a lot of Notre Dame fans who aren't maybe into the realignment community as much as I am, they just hate the ACC because it's bad teams and it's bad refs. And sometimes I got to fight my own to say, the benefits of it. And one of those things is I don't know if another conference would give us this deal. I'm not sure if they would. I thought maybe the Big 12 would until Brett Yormark said some crazy things.
Kerosene on a fire. I couldn't believe how flamey he was. In fact, I still think there's something going on there between him and the SEC and the ACC. But we digress. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there's that. And I don't think the Big Ten's ego has changed on that because they want Notre Dame all or nothing, which is understandable. It would be a win-win to have this arrangement. It would be more of a win for Notre Dame, which is why they don't want to do it. But I don't think they want to do it. And I don't know if the SEC's, I don't know where they stand on it. So I don't know if we're shopping this arrangement elsewhere. I mean, trust me, if one of the Big Ten or the SEC offered it, I would I would take it in a heartbeat.
Right.
I mean, the ideal situation as a Notre Dame fan is to be independent, but in the Big Ten for other sports,
It
playing a
is.
Big Ten schedule, because that's where the rivals are.
Yeah.
For the most part, the other rivals are in the ACC, but some of them might be going to the Big Ten anyway. Hint, hint, Miami. But so that could be one possible interpretation, Nate. Here's another one that I think people might not be thinking of. Notre Dame and the ACC have a big disagreement right now, and it's on how the games count towards the ACC. So when Stanford came into the conference, Notre Dame was under the impression that they would count towards one of their 5 ACC games because Stanford is an annual rival of Notre Dame. And
Right.
the ACC thought, no, you'll be playing 6 ACC games, 5 plus Stanford. Now, that didn't really matter because the Stanford agreement is up at the end of like next season's last scheduled one. Maybe they renew it, maybe they don't. I don't know. But the bigger disagreement has been on Clemson. So Notre Dame obviously isn't happy with the ACC games we're getting because it's just done rotationally. It's not the contrary to the conspiracy theories. Notre Dame does not pick their ACC opponents. That just happens. The ACC is in charge of that, and we're clearly not liking it. So we reached out and had an agreement with Clemson. So starting in 2027 up until I think around 2040 something, we're going to play each other every year. And Notre Dame said this counts towards one of the 5 ACC games, and the ACC said no, it doesn't. So I think maybe that could be where this Notre Dame outburst might be directed at. It might be trying to make the scheduling better and more favorable for Notre Dame, which should be welcomed by the rest of the college football community since we're often attacked for not having a stronger schedule. This would allow for that to be stronger because one of those ACC games would be Clemson, and then we would have more free spots to go schedule a BYU or maybe even Texas Tech. I think that would be another great series. So I'm not really sure what Pete Bavacqua's play is there with the ACC. But listen, when you say a relationship is permanently damaged, that's heavy. There's got to
Yeah.
be some kind of consequence to that, whether that is going out and finding a new conference, or whether that's getting them to push on this scheduling disagreement, or whatever it is. I don't know what his goal is yet on that because apparently him and Jimmy, as he referred to him as, met Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner, Notre Dame's AD, referred to him as Jimmy. So him and Jimmy met in New York for a conversation, apparently a 2-hour conversation this week. We don't know the results of that. So to answer your question, where this ACC relationship is heading, I don't really know, man. It's kind of up there. I do know that we're close with some ACC schools, though, so we'll kind of keep an eye on that and see what materializes from it.
I think there will be no difficulty if you guys dropped out of the ACC deal and just scheduled independently. I think you could fill up your roster very quickly. At some point, you'd need to decide how many schools are there to just create games and how many are there to give you either rivalries or good competition. You'd have to balance that. But as we've seen in the Big Ten, these mismatched schedules do not always bring the most difficult brands together anyway. So Notre Dame, I think, only needs maybe it from my very limited opinion, except it's my show, so it means a lot. Uh, I think all Notre Dame would need to do is schedule 5 top 25 perennial teams every year, and the rest of the schedule could be flushed out however they wanted to. You keep the service academies, that's 3. That leaves you only 4 left that you'd have to get from other conferences and players. But I think if you got 5, I get 3 left. I think if you did 5, and I'll just name a few that I think could be natural. I think the Miami one should be annual anyway. I think
Yep.
Clemson was a fantastic pickup. I like the idea of doing Texas A&M or any other Texas school. I think the BYU one, I think, is a natural affinity. I don't know why that hasn't caught on over the years, but that to me could be an easy alignment. And then I fall back on, I still wish the USC game was happening. So you guys could easily flush out a schedule and not have to be bent over to the ACC. Not that you want to give up that. Notre Dame has a very advantageous relationship with the ACC. I just think it's a pain in the ass knowing that you're only playing really 2 games a year that mean anything.
Yeah, so I'll kind of play devil's advocate just for the sake of the conversation there.
Sure.
My only concern would be like, yes, Notre Dame's not going to have trouble finding 12 teams who want to play them, but with the way scheduling is going, the Big Ten's at 9, the SEC's at 9, it might be hard to find teams to play later in the year. I can find 12 teams to play Notre Dame in September, no problem. But
Yeah,
how will I fill out that October, November part of the schedule? That would be my concern with just completely leaving the
that's
ACC
fair.
agreement.
That's
The
fair.
service academy thing, we only play Navy every year. Army has been every 10 years we tend to play them, and Air Force is not. But we would, of course, they'd be happy to play us. We
Yeah,
also like to play 10 Power 4 schools a year, which not all schools do. People like to rag on the Notre Dame schedule, but Notre Dame's they only played two group of six teams this year, and they were Navy, who was a tiebreaker away from being in the American championship game, and Boise State, who won the Mountain West. So it's not like Notre Dame went out and found the easiest cupcakes in the world to find for those games. They found, Navy's up and down, but Navy was currently up. So yeah, I think we'd be able to still put together a schedule. I would just be concerned about who we're playing in October and November because 15 years ago when I started watching college football, maybe 20, Notre Dame played the Big Ten schools in September, and we played the Big East schools in October, and we always had USC
yeah.
in there.
The Big East
And
was a good pressure reducer from that regard. That's true. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
yeah, absolutely. And we have so many
Yeah,
rivals too, which kind of comes as a result of being independent forever. Like I've said this on your show before, our rivals are like our conference members.
yeah,
Notre Dame and Stanford do not hate each other. Notre Dame and Michigan State have great respect for each other. Notre Dame and Pitt like each other. It's not a hatred-filled fandom with rivals. It's a lot of mutual respect there. And those have always been our partners. We work with them closely, we schedule them, and it's just that's slowly going away with the way things are. And that would be my concern is Notre Dame eventually just not being able to schedule the right teams at the right times that might force us to join a conference. But, until that happens or until the playoff is cut off, I would expect Notre Dame to keep fighting for independence.
I will say this: if we went to a BCS type selection criteria and we no longer have a committee, the penalty to be playing games in November would go away. Out of conference games, the pressure would come off a little bit. If you were to get rid of the recency bias that has hit BYU 2 years in a row. BYU should have been in the playoff the last 2 years. Data, I can bring out loads of data that can prove that. I'm not saying that they're better than Notre Dame. I just think that sometimes you have different arguments for different situations. And at the end of the day, they were right there. But because of when you lose those games and when the Big 12 is scheduling their most important games, it's not advantageous at all to go into on an 8 or 9 or 10 game winning streak and through October and November. So I think if you got rid of some of those sort of dumb things and you went to a computer model that everybody knew what the math was, it was produced, there was no smoke and mirrors, there was no black box math. I think that you could make some of those things work.
In fact, there's an account out there called Simulated BCS, which does its best
Right,
to put
right.
those together, and it uses the way the BCS, it's the computer plus the human element, and I believe Notre Dame was in on their standings, and I think BYU was as well. To your point,
Yeah,
you know what's funny? Like hindsight's 2020, but if we had a 16-team playoff this year, it would have been literally perfect
it
because
would have been perfect.
it gets
Yeah.
everybody who deserved to be in there because BYU
Yes.
deserved to be in there. Like Miami deserved to be in there. I'm not going to argue
Yeah.
against that. Vanderbilt deserved to be in there.
Yeah.
Texas, I think, had a very good argument as a 9-3 to get in. And then I wouldn't be, and you'll never see a Notre Dame fan bitch about Tulane or JMU. Our issues have not been with them because that's the system. That is the system we agreed to. That's how it is. So be it. Virginia losing to Duke may have cost Notre Dame a CFP spot, but in a 16-team playoff, nobody would be complaining if Tulane and JMU were there because all the teams that should have been there would have been. And not every year is going to be like this, but I think 16 has become the optimal number because we have parity now, and that's one of the best things that have happened in the last 5 years of college football. But because of the transfer portal, because of legalize paying players where everybody can do it and not just certain schools,
Yeah.
you've seen things get a lot more equal. I mean, look at what you guys have done at BYU. Nobody, I think, saw that coming, and it's 2 years in a row now. You know, you're solidifying yourself as a perennial contender. Texas Tech has been able to build an absolute juggernaut there, and then you're
Yeah.
seeing schools like Notre Dame and Ohio State sort of, kind of elevate to another level. And we're at the point now where there's more than just 4 teams that can win the national championship. And having that 16 field, I think, would have been perfect this year. But you know, it is what it is, and I'm not gonna blame Tulane or JMU. It's just that's the system we have. It's a system Notre Dame's athletic director, previous Jack Swarbrick, helped put together. So, you know, it is what it is. But we'll see what we can do moving forward.
It bothers me only because we've had opportunities to make it right, and they just haven't done a good job of closing the loop. It's always been greed and control, and that's rough. If you're not, one of the 8 blue bloods and a couple extra programs that perennially are there every year to compete for national championship, those disadvantages are massive. But NIL is an equalizer. Transfer portal is an equalizer, and I think we're looking at a good time in the future where hopefully we get to 16 this next year. I'm praying they do.
Is that your preferred model, 16?
I actually like 24, and this is I know 24. A lot of people freak out. Wow, 24, that's horrible. But if you look at the top 24, essentially you take the top 25 straight seeding and you put that into a 2014 bracket, I would have watched every one of those games. Because there were teams, I mean, you didn't say Utah earlier, but Utah would have been in my 16. And then you get to, well, why are we leaving Duke out? Just because they lost 5 games, they won an autonomous conference. Why don't they get to play a game? So you go to 24, and those first round matchups all on campus. The second round matches are the 8 winners plus the first 8 that get the first round bye. Those are on campus. So the first 2 weeks of playoff games are on campus, and it gives pretty much everybody who had any amount of good season an opportunity to play, including G6 programs. There might be years where there's 3 G6 teams that get in. Who knows, right? But 16 is great. I would have preferred 16 this year, but my number right now is 24, but where me and Greg Flugard, I know you know that is, friend of our show, where I sort of go sideways from Greg a little bit, is I don't think you need AQs. I think you can just go 1 through 24, and you could have a very compelling playoff.
I'm repulsed by the idea of so many automatic qualifiers just by being in a conference. If your conference is that good, let them rank them straight up and let them get in that way, which is your position, which is the SEC's position. So I'm with you on that. I'm enjoying reading through some of these comments here on the side. This has been a good one.
We've got some good people here. We could actually go through a few questions if you want to do that. I've been marking them. Let me play this. I'm just going to play this audio and I'm just going to let it sit. We don't have to say anything about it. But if anybody is keyed into this comment, I want to hear your comment. I want to hear your opinions about it. So let me play this really quick. I think you'll be able to hear this audio. Let's see. Let me make it big, I guess, so we can at least people can see it. All right, it's Kenny Dillingham, and this is his audio right after he got his new contract.
We need to find one of these really rich people in this city to step up and stroke a check, and I'll do everything I can to make you the most famous person in the city, right? That's really what we need. We need one person. We live in Phoenix, Arizona. You're telling me there's not one person who can stroke a $20 million check right now? There is somebody out here who can. There's somebody who can. There's somebody. And like other people are going to sacrifice to be here. Somebody step up and be that dude to say, holy cow, what completely changed it? This person. There's somebody out there that's going to listen to this, that's going to get it forwarded it. If you know somebody who can do it, forward this message to somebody. Somebody can step up and completely take this place from the direction it's going to holy cow.
That makes my skin crawl, Dylan.
I like him. I like him a lot.
Do you? Okay. See, I know I'm unique, and most people do like him.
I'll tell you what. I get why. I totally get. I'm not going to comment on the substance of what he said. I like his energy, and I'm really glad he's not going to Michigan. I
There
see
you
his
go.
face, and I'm thinking, I hope you stay in Arizona forever, sir.
You better be careful what you wish for, because if Kyle Whittingham goes there, look out. They're going to win
That's
some
true.
games.
No, Utah's
All
been
right.
one great program.
It's the unintended consequences, right? You get one or the other. Anyways, so everybody heard that comment. I'll probably play it once more before the end of the show. That just, there's something about his, like, chemically, there's something that I just don't enjoy seeing him do things. But I seem to be in
I
the
love it.
minority. I seem to be in
No,
the
no, that's
minority.
good. If everybody liked the same stuff, there'd be no interest in the world. So I
There you
like hearing
go.
that, Nate.
I appreciate that. Okay, let's get to some super chats and then I'll get to some comments. First one, Ryan Thomas again, another $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Ryan, for your continued membership in the College Football Mafia family. We appreciate you. On campus games ruins studying for finals, and that's a smiling face. So yeah, Ryan doesn't care, I promise you. He would not care if BYU had a home game. When BYU gets a home game, everybody, the entire state will shut down. I will tell you that right now. And then Caden the Diesel Freak, another valuable member of the college football mafioso out there. Good to have you here tonight, Caden. I'm ready for the college football playoffs. Caden has an idea for an extended playoffs that goes pretty deep. Like he's got super mechanics, how the conferences crossover and all these things. One day we'll have time to be able to flush that all out, but they're very creative ideas, and we appreciate having them around here. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Caden. And then Caden also gave a membership, and this Moen is in the chat, and he broke this. Your super chat or your valuable membership, Caden, went to Moen, so he owes you money. Whatever that membership was you paid for, tee him up in on Twitter or in the comment section. Have him write you a check, because he's the one that ended up taking that membership for some silly reason. Okay, let me get to some comments. I agree with you. I was trying to catch as many of these as I could, but we'll work backwards. Let's see here. C. Curtis in the house. Good to have you here, Curtis. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Valuable member of the College Football Mafia family. The G5 Big 12, I'm guessing, ACC and, what is it? G5 and ACC Big 12 need to be careful. They will form a super league if they are forced. What is the concern about the super league? Not necessarily this one that Curtis is talking about, but I think Notre Dame's going to be fine no matter what happens with the next step, right?
For sure, any kind of super conference league, whatever, any super league that cuts off access will have Notre Dame in it, right? Because that would prevent Notre Dame from competing at the highest level, and at that point, that'll join. As a college football fan, I hate that idea. I mean, I don't think it's fair that just because Washington State and Oregon State don't have a lot of TV value doesn't mean their programs don't matter. So I would hate to see any kind of super league get formed at the expense of everybody else. Depends maybe on the size of the Super League, but I would assume the Super League would be kind of NFL style, Big Ten plus SEC plus whoever else is of immense value out there. So do they need to be careful? I don't know. I don't think the Big Ten and the SEC want that either, to be honest, because there's a lot of it's more than just sports. And you see that with the Big Ten. The Big Ten's really particular about certain academic stuff with their membership. And I don't know how they would feel about breaking off with the SEC and doing their own thing. And you'd run the risk of college football fans revolting against the sport.
Yes, it's very true.
So
Yeah.
I don't think the Super League's necessarily coming. I do think you'll see maybe a Power 2 gap financially that compounds over time and that is so large that it becomes very hard for anyone else to compete. But I don't know if there's going to be an actual exclusion of the rest of college football. At least I hope not.
If we get the playoff right, there wouldn't be a purpose to having super leagues. If we could stumble upon a format that everybody likes, there would be no reason to form a super league. That's why I'm in favor. I hate the 5-11. Never been a fan of that, because I don't think AQs, unless you're going to give the Big 12 the same number as the Big 10 or the SEC, I don't see a reason to do it. But I think if you go to 24, you could do several different formats in that style and make it work. So I don't know. We'll keep watching. Obviously, time will tell, but certainly we're big supporters of Oregon State, Washington State around here, and I don't want to see Boise teams that have really stepped up, put in the dedication, the money and resources that want to be competitive in college football. They should not be kept out. Tulane, Memphis has made strides. So if you're going to invest, I say you need to have access. So Kenneth Maynor, member for 5 solid months. Thank you so much, Kenneth. Kenneth represents the Eastern Carolina Pirates in the house. Good to have you here, Kenneth. Thank you so much for being here tonight. The Americans should be in talks with JMU to add them to the conference. James Madison already has an affiliate member of the AAC, in women's lacrosse and swim diving. Grab top G6 brands and strengthen the AAC. Do you see a consolidation possibly of G6 conferences?
Yes, I do, and I like the American. I'll be honest. I think that's such a great conference. From just an aesthetic standpoint, the uniforms and helmets are amazing of those teams. But also, like, it's fun football, and you throw the service academies in there, and it just creates such a wild chase for the championship. I think James Madison would be a great addition. I mean, what Kurt Signetti did with that program and now what they're doing at this moment, just really remarkable stuff. So I could see the G6 maybe consolidating to keep up because that gap is going to keep growing. I mean, we saw the Pac-12 try to take some of those
Yeah,
AAC
they
schools.
screwed that up. They screwed that up big time.
They did. Now, I will be honest. I am a secret liker of Tulane. That is
okay. All right.
I have a side team, maybe. I really like the Green Wave, so maybe they'll be in the ACC one day. But as of now, they're in the American, and I really enjoy that conference.
I would love for the Pac-12 and the AAC to merge, essentially, be the first Super League. I would love to have them represent what would become a G4, and I think that they would have the best football in the country. It'd be very easy to see the distinction between the conferences if you were to combine those two conferences.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There are schools that would be left out. San Diego State and UNLV would not be happy with that, but the Mountain West, I mean, what are we talking about here, right? What work are we doing? Anyway, yeah. So thank you, Kenneth. It's great to see you tonight. Happy holidays to you and to everybody else. Thanks for being here tonight. I'm going to let Dylan sign off. He gave me some of his time, and I'm very, very grateful to him. But I want to really quick do a shout out to everyone. Thank you so much for being here. All the support you've given to the College Football Mafia family over the last year has not been overlooked. We appreciate each one of you. The contributors that have given their time so freely. Dylan, thank you so much for all you've done for us. And I just want to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas to those who celebrate. And let's get through this holiday season safe. And one last thing I want to say is please give your hugs, kisses, phone calls, send a text. If somebody's name jumps in your head and you hadn't talked to them or thought about them for a while, it probably is a little prompting for you to get a hold of them because the holidays are very tough on a lot of people. And if you're thinking about them, it means they probably need that little boost. So please take your time to do that if you can. All right, Dylan, I'm going to give you a minute here. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody again about your channel and kind of what you got looking forward as you're going into this next year.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nate. Four Horsemen Podcast. We're available anywhere you get podcasts. We welcome everybody. It's mostly Notre Dame focused, but we do cover other things in college football. You could find us on Twitter, Instagram, other social medias at Horseman Pod. And if you had a comment that we didn't get to today, and it was maybe addressed to me, please feel free to reach out, send a DM, just let me know you're from the show, and maybe we can carry a conversation in there, because I'm happy to talk about it. I think Notre Dame is a very misunderstood program, so anytime I have a chance to maybe clarify or represent our views on the show, I'm really happy to do so. So again, thank you, Nate, for the CFB Mafia. It's always great to be on to talk some college football realignment too, because we don't get a lot of that in the Notre Dame community. So
well, we'll do it again. We'll get together the next couple months. We will talk CFP and negotiations and realignment. We'll do that in February or March.
Absolutely. That sounds like a blast. I'm always down for it, and I'm sure Moen's got some questions for me as well. So
You guys need to do a show together is what you need to do.
that would
You
be a
can
fun show.
resolve differences, feed family. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much, Dylan.
Thank you so much. Thanks,
Happy
everybody, and
holidays, and please take care.
happy holidays indeed.
Okay.
Go Irish.
No, go Irish. We'll see you later. Bye-bye. All right. He is Dylan from the Four Horsemen podcast. I'm just going to tell everybody, just look him up on Twitter. Dylan has never been mean to anybody that I've ever seen. And I've been following him for almost 3 years now, long before we'd spoken. One of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And if you have questions, even you can be critical of the way Notre Dame does things. At least he will give you an educated response. He will have a passionate reply, but he never loses his head and really, really gives thoughtful answers. I would just encourage you to follow the Four Horsemen podcast on YouTube, and then subscribe on Twitter. They definitely deserve your time and energy. I don't have time tonight to take calls, but I do have a couple other news items I wanted to get to tonight. So we're going to do that before we move on to anything else. Yeah, I'm just going to bring this up. We'll just go through a couple things here. First one is, this is to circle back to the story we led with earlier today. Notre Dame and BYU have signed a 2-year deal to play home and home series. Yes, BYU is going to get the first game. It's going to be in Provo next fall. That's a bucket list trip. One, going to Indiana I've always wanted to do, but just down the road here, I'm going to do everything I can to get a ticket to that game. Should be just amazing. Nothing but respect for Notre Dame. That broadcast will be, or no, those games will be in 26 and 27. And for those that are BYU fans, this game actually takes the place of a 2-game deal that was dropped by Cal, because the ACC went to 9 games and dropped the BYU game. So this couldn't have been better timing, I think, for BYU or Notre Dame, especially coming off of the CFP rankings this last year being 11 and 12. Really looking forward to that game in the spring or next fall. And just tell everybody, keep your hard hats on with that and news. You never know, there's more stuff that might come out about it. I do want to follow up. There was a question on Twitter I did answer. I will take my Twitter reply and I'll post a link to it, put it in the comment section so you can follow this if you want to. But people were asking for broadcast windows. It's not a Notre Dame home game, so it's not going to be on NBC. That much we're pretty sure of. We can make some guesses about where the broadcast rights are. Here in this article, I said ESPN. I meant ABC/ESPN. So more than likely, ESPN is going to get the first draw that week, and they'll take this game. So unfortunately, I'm afraid it'll be a ESPN game. But I am secretly coveting college football on Fox, and the big, what is it, big noon kickoff on Fox for BYU Notre Dame would just be awesome. I don't think it'll happen. It's sort of a dream wish that we have it on Fox, but regardless, this duo of games, one will be in Provo, and then the next year it will be at Notre Dame. Another audio I wanted to get to. Let me bring this one up. This is audio that I want to bring up from the last couple days. That this is obviously the head coach, Joey McGuire from Texas Tech. And this just tells you how class active he is, how much of a class act he is. He's at the Orange Bowl. Their team is getting ready to play Oregon. The biggest game, probably, I think probably it is the biggest game in Texas Tech history. More eyeballs than ever. We're going to be watching this game. And I can't wait for it, by the way. This is him talking about, well, I'll just let him play. I don't have to say what he's going to say. He can say it.
I think we're a little bit different each week. We've struggled in the red zone, and then we went through 2 or 3 weeks to where we were really effective in it. So it's kind of like, who we played. BYU was extremely good defensively in the red zone. It's one of the strongest things that they do. And those were the two games I think we probably struggled the most. So I think we're a little bit different each week.
So you're hearing from the horse's mouth, Joey McGuire, just another sort of stake in the ground saying how good this BYU team was this year. It's unfortunate they're not in the playoff. But this is more a story not about BYU. It's about how gracious Joey McGuire is and how amazing he's a massive resource for the Big 12. I'm afraid next year somebody might steal him, even though he looks a little bit older. He's the kind of guy who knows how to build a program up. Certainly in the modern day NIL, I have nothing but I am just over the moon with how well Joey McGuire and his success at Texas Tech and his representation of the Big 12. And he has been nothing but gracious all this run into the playoffs. He's talked very well about Utah as well. So, yeah, it's one of these situations where he's a fantastic rep, and I wanted to make sure he got a little bit of time and recognition in that regard. And then the last thing, and I'm just going to circle back on this USC Notre Dame negotiation. At the end of the day, all we can say is that the relationship is at a low ebb right now between USC and Notre Dame. I don't know a college football fan that doesn't think that rivalry needs to continue. But the stresses at USC are real, and I realize boosters at USC don't understand it. They're not happy about it. They understand it, but they're not happy about it. The ex-players, Keyshawn Johnson, came out and really hit back at the USC administration. But everybody needs to realize if you lose late in the college football playoff, you're dead. In the run-up, I mean. In the final weeks of a season, if you lose in November, you're dead. For all intents and purposes, unless you're undefeated at the time, you're dead because you cannot lose because of recency bias. That's all anybody remembers. So USC has a valid argument from that standpoint. Why do they want to play a rivalry game against a Notre Dame team who, by the way, has taken them into the woodshed for the last decade? Why put yourself on the line? If you're a 10-2 USC, you could possibly be in the run-up to the Big Ten championship. You're going to be in the playoff. We know that because we're seeing that now. The last 2 years with the Big Ten rep. Why would they want to throw another game in there that's not even a conference game that lowers their potential? It increases their strength of schedule, but it really makes their season a lot more difficult to complete. So you can hit at USC all you want, and you can hit on Notre Dame for being greedy. Neither one of these organizations is doing the wrong thing, though, for their own good. They're both doing what's best for their schools as they see it, and we all have to deal with the system that we have been given now by the college football playoff negotiations and the conferences. So, all right, that's it. I was going to go another half hour, but my throat's starting to hurt. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I want to thank Dylan so much for joining me for a little bit. If you missed the beginning of the show, join in late. Rewind at the beginning of the show and catch Dylan from Four Horsemen podcast, representing the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Lots of good comments there, and some real good discussion. Hopefully it doesn't answer questions necessarily, but it'll put context around some of the happenings that have been going the last little bit around Notre Dame specifically, but also with the wider college football world. Answered, I think, every question that I had outstanding. So I want to push everybody towards their channel. Other than that, this week, I don't know if Moen's doing a show tomorrow. We have to do a show Friday, right, Moen? I don't know if Moen's still watching. Watch our Twitter feeds. I'm not sure when our next show is. I don't have a problem doing it on Christmas Day. I think we'd have a lot of people watching. If you guys would like to watch us on Christmas Day, send the College Football Mafia, the CFB Mafia, a message on Twitter, or send it to me or Moen or you. Let us know if you'd like to have us do a show on Friday. I'm happy to do it. Doesn't bother me in the least. So we can talk about that. In other words, Follow us on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, give us a thumbs up for the show tonight. I think we do a pretty good job. And I want to thank everybody for being longstanding members of the College Football Mafia family. And for all of you from all of my family, all the College Football Mafia family wider, we're very grateful for everything you've done for us. And we're going to finish this year off well and jump into next year. And this offseason is going to be banging. Telling everybody, we've been talking about it as a team. This offseason is going to be the best one we've ever had. And you guys know we do already bang up work in the offseason. So want to encourage everybody to tell your friends and neighbors, give us shouts out on Twitter when you see us, and do everything, continue to do what you do to support the College Football Mafia. I am your host, Nathan Bomber Brown, and I'm going to say toot sweet and peace out. Peace. Go Cougs. And we will talk to you guys soon. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.